Welcome to North Idaho Experience. In today's episode, we sit down with John Pulsipher. He's a local dentist and now running for the mayor of Coeur d'Alene. We've had two other mayoral candidates on in the past, and I believe there's a fourth coming on as well. So our goal with these is to provide information to the public. We are not aligning with one or another. We are just passing that information along to you guys. So I hope you enjoy. And remember, if you are thinking about making the move to North Idaho, our team specializes in helping conservative families find their freedom right here in North Idaho. Hey, so John Pulsipher, welcome to the show. The third mayoral candidate that we've had on. So we'll probably hit you with some of the same questions, just to be fair. And we always need to state that we are not necessarily endorsing anyone, especially at this time. We're just providing information. So we're happy to have this platform that we can talk to you, in a long format, because I hate short little clips, because then things get taken out of context. So we're here and we're sitting down, and honestly, we've never met until today. I know literally nothing about you. I looked at your website for 37 seconds. It looks good, by the way. And I'm excited to have this conversation.
Well, thanks for having me. I found your website as I was also looking at mayoral candidates and watched you do interviews with them. And that kind of one thing turned into another, which maybe we'll get into. But yeah, here we are.
Yeah. What do you do for your day job?
So I'm a dentist in Coeur d'Alene for the last 17 years.
Okay, cool. Good to know. I'm all of a sudden feeling very self-conscious about my teeth.
I know. Well, at least they're not blue today. You've had other ones where you took that stuff that turned them bright blue.
I took methylene blue. Have you ever heard of that? It's
awesome.
I won't say what Eric said, but it turned my entire mouth and tongue extremely blue, and I did it right before a podcast, of course. Awesome. And it's not meth, by the way. It's methylene blue. It's a different thing.
Because it's different.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's health benefits. Many health benefits.
Yeah, truly, man. In this instance, it's not. We like to be able to pass and disseminate information as much as we can. We really try our hardest not to be biased. I mean, we have our implicit beliefs and value systems, but in your case, we're learning a lot, right? Because I told you before, I'm local law enforcement here. I was involved with our collective bargaining, and I'd never met you before. And to throw your hat into a mayoral race, I'm super curious. I mean, I'll ask where did you come from before? You've been here as a dentist for 17 years. You've seen a lot of change. Where were you before?
Yeah, so when I finished dental school, I came up here right out of study. So it's my first job, first career. I grew up in Southern California in a small town.
No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
It was northern Los Angeles County, small town, one stop sign, no stoplights. A lot of cherry orchards, horse ranches, conservative community down there. My dad was a dentist, and we were born and raised down there, same city, same town. And he, his dental practice, he ended up selling and coming up here, and they had bought a vacation home up here, and then they got out of California, like most other people who are here, it seems like.
Yeah. Pretty common right now. I know you'll hear locals say things like we're full and all of that stuff, but 90% of the people you meet are from somewhere else. I mean, this area attracts, and because of the similar values, right? Most people that come here share the same values that we all do, which I think is a good thing. Obviously, the growth brings challenges, and I'm sure we'll get to that because that's a big part of the mayoral policy making. The burning question for me is, what inspired you to throw your hat in the ring?
Yeah, so there can be a long story, short story. I haven't told it to too many people.
We have nothing but time.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't worry, man.
So when we lived in Hayden when we first moved here, we bought a house in Strawberry Fields. Great neighborhood. You probably have clients that may want to move there. Great neighborhood. CC&R is very safe, walkable, close to everything. Great neighborhood. But we always were drawn to somewhere a little more walkable, where you could walk to the library, walk to restaurants, shops. And we always had our eye on downtown Coeur d'Alene. So we looked for years and years, and finally a property came up that my wife was like, okay, that's perfect. The house is great, the land is great, and we ended up buying down in the Fort Grounds, another amazing neighborhood, which for me, I think it's the top place in Coeur d'Alene. If I was looking from out of town to move here, I'd look at Fort Grounds or somewhere Foster Avenue in Coeur d'Alene. But anyway, so we bought the property. Old historic home, super cool, but it needed some work. So we brought over contractors, we brought over some engineers, some architects, and one of the builders said, it's kind of fine how it is. You should just leave it. Or, what you could do, you could tear it down and build whatever you want for probably $400,000 or $500,000.
Wait, what year was this? This was not very recent.
No, this is like end of 2014, beginning of 2015.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we're looking at it and we're like, well, we're weighing the options. So we found there was lead paint, which is common, right? There had been an electrical fire recently in the home, and then asbestos. And aside from all of that, the foundation had pretty major cracks in it. And we thought, are we going to put in $300,000-$400,000 to redo this so the kitchen is going to work for my wife, for our family? We have 4 boys, and boys need a lot of room. And anyway, so we weighed all of our options. We thought about it. We prayed about it. We ultimately made the tough decision of, okay, let's tear it down and build something similar that fits with the neighborhood. And so we did that, and that kind of led into a few things that eventually turned into today, a mayoral campaign. One thing that happened was the day they started tearing the house down, then the newspaper called me, the Coeur d'Alene Press, and said, hey, we want to talk to you about this, what's going on. And I'm working, I'm seeing patients, I'm busy. And so by the time I get back to them and say, hey, let's set up a time and talk, it's past 5 o'clock. The next morning, something runs in the paper, like local dentist tears down historic home. And it's got my workplace and our address and what the plans are for the new house. And it was on the front page of the paper. It felt violating. Like this is private property. I understand it's in a very public place, but and there were some neighbors who weren't happy about it. And there was another push amongst that neighborhood to kind of limit how things could be built, what people can do with their property, which was a continuation of a few years before. On Lakeshore Drive, there was another property that is now 4 condos or 4 townhomes. You may see it. It's on Lakeshore Drive. It's right there, very prominent. And neighbors got really upset then, like, no, we don't want any multifamily in this neighborhood. And that ended up passing. And then after we did our project, there was another push to kind of limit what you can do with your property. Maybe there should be a 3D building envelope created, and meaning like you can only build so tall and you have to fit within these parameters, certain parameters. And anyways, because of that, things started happening at City Hall. They wanted to decide, should we make changes and that will affect homeowners' rights? And from there, I started paying attention to planning commission meetings, city council meetings, going and giving public comment. So it kind of started with property rights. And at the end of the day, we felt like what we were doing was, we didn't put in an ADU. We could have, it's a double lot. We could have put 2 homes with 2 ADUs. We could have turned 1 unit into 4 units.
Yeah.
Which probably would have been smarter. We spent probably the same amount of money to do it because our house ended up being way too big, but that's a separate story for how that happened. But anyway.
So it's an issue with, you started paying attention to how things were planned, and that got your interest in getting into the mayoral race.
Well, yeah, almost. So from there, so I kind of had an axe to grind with the press a little bit. I'm like, what is so slow in the news that you have to write about me and our property and our house? And so I started a company called the CDA News, which is focusing on local economic and political issues. Not right then. It was several years later. It kind of, first I called an attorney and said, can I sue them for this? Like, this is invasion of privacy.
Yeah.
But anyway, I started that up. And over the last 10 years, I've been involved. Like, when people run for office, I say, okay, where I live, it seems like, I'm not sure, but a lot of my neighbors seem to be more left-leaning than right-leaning, which is fine, which is great. I want to be in a community where everybody's welcome and everybody's voice can be heard. But because of that, I kind of felt like, wait a second, if we're pushing for certain city candidates who lean a certain way, why don't we bring in those who are endorsed by local Republicans and talk to them too? Let's hear what their idea is for their policies. So I started having interviews and hosting things in my home. And then this year, Now we're getting to the answer of your question. Why the mayoral race now? Yeah, my water bottle's like empty. But anyway.
Oh, I can get your water if you need it.
That'd be great. So this year, I was not planning on running for mayor, and I invited, but when I saw Woody put his hat in, I thought, okay, cool. He's a nice guy. He doesn't seem to be screwing anything up. Everybody loves Woody. Mm-hmm. And then Dan announced his candidacy shortly thereafter, Dan Gukin. And I thought, that's weird. Dan is the right-hand man of Woody. Like, why is he running? What does he see that I don't see? Mm-hmm. Is there something going wrong? And you know, Dan's a very smart man. He's very astutely aware of what's going on in the city. So that's not a problem. But that just made me think, okay, let me invite both of them over to interview them under the CDA News and see what they say. What's their vision for the city? Because in my mind, the mayor is the ambassador of the city. They're going to be the leader. They're going to set out with a vision. And what each of them described for their vision of the city over the next 4 years, I was underwhelmed. And I thought, that doesn't sound like a vision. And I just had the thought, like, maybe I'm going to run as well. And we'll let the people decide. And that's fine. We'll see what happens.
Well,
So,
with that said, what is your vision for the city?
so a couple of things. As I've been going to meetings, it seems like many people show up and they say, we didn't know. You never told us this was an issue until I found out today, people would say. So on day one thing I would do is improve communication to residents. A lot of city notices right now get put in the Coeur d'Alene press, and only the press. For example, the city has properties that they lease out, and they don't put it on the internet saying, hey, we have this property in this location. If you want to lease it, put in a bid. You have to know where to look to find these things. And so it leads to, one, either properties are not rented out, or two, they're rented out at a low rate. And that's one example. There's other decisions that are being made that I think if the city communicates better, citizens will feel better informed, and they will feel like their voice does matter and that they're being listened to. So if we first improve communication, everybody's going to feel better. The second thing I would do is I want to engage citizens more. So what does that mean? We need people to serve more in the city. One example of what I would want to do, and I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts. You would be the first law enforcement people I've talked directly about this, but many cities have a volunteer chaplaincy or volunteer chaplain program where law enforcement officers are not tasked not only with going to a traumatic crime scene and figuring out what happened and put all of that together. In addition to that, like, oh, here's somebody next to the victim who needs help and somebody to listen to, somebody to hold their hand. So many jurisdictions like Spokane has a chaplain program where there are people who go along to emergency calls like that to give support to victims or family members, to give death notices. So on day one, I would work with local faith leaders to create a volunteer chaplain program to support first responders and the community.
Does that exist already? Because Kootenai County has one, don't they?
Kootenai County does, but
not
Coeur d'Alene doesn't have a dedicated city one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of value in that, having to have had given death notifications. It's not something you're ever prepared for. They don't teach you how to do that anywhere. You just do it.
How do you teach?
How do you? Yeah. But to have, I think if officers had someone to lean on, that they could kind of pass some of that duty, that would be very beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And chaplains do get, there are some training courses for them, and they can do continuing education on how to do that. But my perspective is, we ask so much already of the law enforcement, the firefighters, that if people in the community can do that and offload that little bit of burden, like, why not?
Yeah. I clearly remember the first time I had to do it, and it was at a hospital of the I don't know, he's like 18 or 19-year-old, died in a drunk driving crash, whatever. And the dad shows up at the hospital, and my partner, who was also my FTO prior to that, was like, "Hey, the dad's here. You gotta go tell him his kid's dead." And I was like, "Okay." Like,
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean,
uh,
and you spend 4-hour training session in the police
Right.
academy talking about notifications, and you watch a video, and you're like, oh yeah, it's a little bit challenging.
No big deal.
It honestly, I've been on both sides of it with agencies, and I could go either way with the chaplaincy program. And honestly, a lot of it similar to law enforcement depends on the individual. Some were a huge help. Screening that position is an interesting prospect because you want people to volunteer, but I don't know, it's different.
Well,
there's not a standard.
There's legions of retired cops up here that would do it. My buddy Tim from he works at the sheriff's department. He's a retired Seattle PD guy, and he's a chaplain for the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
So that's even better if you can find guys like that because they have the experience. They've maybe done 30 years as a cop. Like, who better to lean on for something like that?
Yeah.
Especially if it's a younger officer having to deal with it. I think that's a great idea.
When did you throw your hat in? How long ago was it?
The last day possible.
Yeah.
It was like a week ago Friday.
Oh, okay.
So 10 days.
I gotcha.
But going back to the previous question, I did want to say the third thing I would do is I want to take the burden from the taxpayer and spread it out more to the tourists who come. Okay, so based on where I live, this is probably because of where I live and what I see. Because when I lived in Strawberry Fields, maybe I noticed the traffic going down Atlas to go to my job in Riverstone.
Mm-hmm.
But living across from City Park, every day of summer, every weekend, we see the cars that come, we see what they bring, we see them leave, and it looks very clear to me that many of them don't spend any money. They just come and enjoy the parks for free.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that I would do on day one is also talk to the Hagedorn Corporation and say, and I saw you guys talked about this in previous podcasts where we need state legislation to change and make it official, but I'll talk to the Hagedorn Corporation at the Coeur d'Alene Resort and say, will you help support our city by adding a 2% voluntary charge? You're voluntarily going to charge your patrons 2% per night, and then you can pay that to the city to help support our city budget. And we can talk to cities, we can talk to all of the hotels we can talk to. That's it's a big ask, right? But the city has leverage too,
right,
with them.
What would you be prepared to do if they said no?
Well, so one thing is the Coeur d'Alene Resort uses city docks on City Lake, and they pay a lease. It's like $40,000, and it's hundreds of feet. Where
is that the behind the resort? That whole
not the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, because they have the marina, but there are other spots. But in that same area. So
that's a pretty favorable lease.
It is. Yeah, I mean that's what maybe 10 boats pay for one summer, and they use it through the winter. So there's a little bit of leverage and negotiating power. I hope we wouldn't have to use that very long. Hopefully there can be a state solution by allowing the city to mandate that across all hotels. We don't want the Coeur d'Alene Resort as the jewel of northern Idaho to, bear the brunt of that burden. But at the same time, if you're going to go to Coeur d'Alene, where do you want to stay? Stay at the resort. For any of your people listening who are looking from out of state to come here, come stay at the resort. Look how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
Eat at the restaurants. Eat downtown. Then meet with, Eric and Seth and find your dream property.
Yeah.
Because that's, But so there's some leverage. So there's a way to do that. And, the Hagedorn Corporation has been very, very generous to this community. Mm-hmm. I don't want to discount that. So it would be an ask. And, if they say no, we can tighten the screws a little bit.
Right.
Do you think pushing legislation is possible?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that our city leaders have ever contacted every representative from up here or even the whole state. Like, as mayor, I would be willing, I'm going to call every single legislator and say, hey, we need you to change this legislation now. Mm-hmm. The reason of that is you may have heard the city just passed the budget for the next fiscal year, and it's $1.8 million shy of what it needs to be to break even, to balance. So they're using fund balance, which is the reserves. Last year, the same thing happened, but it was $2 million that we had to take from the reserves. That is after already increasing the property tax amount 3 to 4%.
Right.
So that's a problem. Like, we're going to be out of reserves in a few more years if we don't find another source of revenue, even if we raise taxes every year.
What's the biggest draw on the budget? Are you tied in with that? Are you paying attention?
Well, it's personnel. Like,
Yeah.
70 to 80% are the people. And the people are doing a good job. We have the people at the city, and even like being short $2 million, $1.8 million, that's 3.8 over 2 years. That sounds like a ton of money for an American family, right? But when the budget is $130 to $152 million, it's like, it's actually just 1% about. So as mayor, I want to help the city be 1% better. Let's bridge that gap. We're not going to take the whole institution and flush it down the drain.
Right. Obviously, I come from a little bit of a different background. I was part of I helped negotiate some of our prior contracts. Coeur d'Alene City, I don't know if you're aware, Coeur d'Alene PD has collective bargaining. They're one of 2 agencies in Idaho that achieve that through votes through our citizens. How do you weigh balancing your budget and also staying competitive? Because on the one hand, you've got the state of Idaho ranks 49th out of 50 in violent crime rate, while Washington is 3rd out of 50 in violent crime rate. We're down 70% Part 1 crimes when we've had a huge population increase. How do you retain those individuals and attract the best individuals to continue to wear the uniforms here?
Are we still losing people? I know historically this area would be a training ground, and then officers, we're talking specifically cops here, and probably firefighters too, would lateral over to the Washington side because the pay is better. Is that still happening?
We stemmed that for a while and slowed it down a lot, where Coeur d'Alene kind of sets the standard. And then county, gradually, they don't have collective bargaining, but eventually they got up with some commissioners and got that achieved. Now Post Falls is rocketing up the ranks because they went through a huge shortfall of qualified cops. But now they're bypassing Coeur d'Alene again, and we're looking at a lot of attrition. There's been a significant amount of attrition in the last 6 months to a year. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, that's a tricky thing. You have to thread the needle, right? And in the last budget, when they passed it, there was the representative for the police saying, "Hey, we are at an impasse. Like, we appreciate the 3.5% raise that you're giving us. However, has to do with sergeant pay, or where it doesn't make sense for somebody to promote to a sergeant because they take a pay cut."
I watched it.
So it's still happening. So I know the city's working with them we have to have the best first responders. We have to. And part of the problem is that our housing is so expensive. You can get a house in Spokane for quite a bit cheaper than you can in Coeur d'Alene. So that's one problem. But
just, instead of mowing your grass, you just mow the needles in your yard. It's great. It's great. Spokane is a little bit less. Again, I'm from there. I can talk a little bit of trash, but no, I get it. It's a tough balance, and part of that is there's no one ringing the bell. People are going to desire North Idaho because it's minimal government intrusion. There's gun rights here. There's relative safety here. So, and the hard part in Coeur d'Alene is you're limited. You butt up to the mountains. You butt up to other cities. There's no more annexing. If I'm being honest, Post Falls has probably done a better job of growing than Coeur d'Alene City has and annexing appropriate properties because there's nowhere to go in Coeur d'Alene but up. So with that in mind, if I'm hearing you right, you don't want to burden taxpayers locally anymore. Are you kind of putting your eggs all in the basket of charging either out of state or people that are coming here on vacationers, stuff like that, tourism?
That's my preference because the taxpayers already share so much of the burden. But the city employee the finance director said last week, like, even if we take the maximum increase of 3% and the 1% of foregone taxes every year for the next several years, we are not going to be solvent. So it may be that we have to raise the property, but so everybody misunderstands the way the property taxes work because the city just asks for an amount. They're not really increasing your bill by 4%. In some cases, your tax bill can go down when they raise the rate 3% because of the growth. So growth never pays for itself, but growth allows our property taxes to remain the same. So if you go, for example, if you look on Zillow, you can look at property tax history of a house, and it lists on there. I think it gets it from the county website. And
Assessor's office.
Yeah. And if you look back, it's like, oh, so the amount has stayed the same for many of these homes over this time frame, even though we've taken and had tax increases. So it sounds like the city is going to have to do that. But in addition to that, we have to do other things to generate income for the city.
My understanding with property taxes, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you have the levy rate. So are you talking about adjusting the levy rate? Because you take the levy rate and multiply it by the value of the home, which has gone up considerably recently, obviously. So adjusting the levy rates.
Yeah.
And they're fairly low. I mean, they're 0.6 to 0.8%, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So how much of an increase, would be required?
Well, the city was saying if you did the maximum you can do every year is 3% plus 1% of foregone taxes, meaning years in the past when you haven't done a tax increase, you can then reach back for some of that revenue.
Okay. But so what would that put? So if you were at 0.8% previously, it's not, I'm just a dumb street cop, so you got to dumb it down for me. So,
I don't know. Honestly, I couldn't tell you the math exactly.
Okay. All right.
But
so you're not saying it wouldn't be 3.8%. It would be 0.8, however they calculate it. Okay.
Yeah.
So a little bit.
Yeah. Like it's on an average home, it's like $100 a year or something like that.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the statute that designates Idaho cities and the parameters for a resort community?
Yeah.
And do you remember what the number is for the population?
It's like 10,000, right?
Yeah. Are you aware of any legislation that's being moved up or proposed? I imagine there's other cities out there that are going through something similar. I think Coeur d'Alene's it is the shining light of that. I imagine, although Sandpoint was able to keep their population because they kept the annexed portion so small, they could retain it, right? So are you aware of any legislation, and what would you do? Because to me, that seems like the long-term solution.
It's a smart play.
Right.
And I think we should clarify. So if it's, for those that are listening that don't know, if the city is under 10,000 people, then they can qualify for a resort tax. Is that correct?
The city can designate itself as a resort community, and then they can tax proportionately for like hotels and, basically for, different accommodations for a resort community and vacationers. And
so you're putting
tourism.
that burden on the tourists, which they're going to come here anyway, even if you increase that a little bit.
Right.
I think that's a smart play. Obviously, the population thing is dumb and completely outdated.
10,000.
Very few cities that have less than that are
Right.
actually resort destinations.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and so in addition to that, just because there's still short-term rentals, and we have a ton in the community, we have a ton that are not even permitted, and the city's been looking at that. And pop quiz, do you know what the fee is for a short-term rental for 1 year in Coeur d'Alene?
No.
$180.
Wow.
Which sounds free to me.
Pretty
Okay?
damn close, because they can make a lot of money on those, huh?
Yeah, so we've been living in a short-term rental for the last 3 weeks, my family. We had to move out of our home to have floors refinished from a flooding thing that happened last year. And we wanted to stay in our neighborhood. There's a ton of short-term rentals in our neighborhood. And so anyways, we get on the Airbnb, we contact people, say, hey, we're in the neighborhood. We need it for 3 weeks. Can you give us any discount? And one said, oh yeah, it'll be like $6,000 for 3 weeks. And another one said, oh yeah, we'll give you a discount of like 10%. That'll bring it down to $21,000.
Oh,
Yeah.
And so obviously you can guess where we stayed, right? We took the $6,000, but still $6,000 over 3 weeks. I mean, that's $8,000 a month if you're renting it out all the time. And maybe you only rent in the summer, but winter's a beautiful time to come to Coeur d'Alene as well. So the vacation rentals can definitely afford to pay more than $180 for a permit. I pulled a permit for my house just to keep it because the city was considering a few years ago of limiting who can have the permit and do we consider density.
Yeah, based on urban renewal district, stuff like that. And you're right down in that neighborhood. You might not be a part of the urban renewal district, but you're close.
Yeah, no, they've shut down the Lake District, but they were looking citywide. They said south of Harrison Avenue is the greatest density of vacation rentals, and the question is, what impact does that have on neighborhoods? How does it affect? So, for example, we're in that house in that neighborhood. There is no street parking without a permit. You have to have a Fort Grounds homeowner's permit. But because the house we were in was a vacation rental, and the one next to us is a vacation rental, and the one next to that is a vacation rental, and that's on Garden Avenue, just going right into NIC, 3 in a row. Because of that, and a house across the street is being rebuilt, there's nobody there who lives there, who knows what's normal, what's not. There's no neighborhood watch going on in those homes because people don't know what's normal. They don't care. And so what does that mean? Like, there is a law that's not being kept. If you can say, like, the no parking is a law. Like, I parked there for 3 weeks without not 3 weeks, anyways, but I never had that decal up in my window. So, I mean, that's kind of one example of how vacation rentals can impact neighborhoods. So, not to say I'm against them, but they can pay a little bit more. They can pay 2% lodging tax as well.
You can't argue the impact, and they definitely hurt the community feel. I lived on 3rd Street for a while, right downtown, and vacation rental all around me. And, I don't know any, there's no neighbors to know. So it kind of kills the small town feel, and I can see why people would get upset about that. So I think, and I can say this because I don't own any vacation rentals, I think you should charge the hell out of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. How do you address the vacation rentals? Like, what would you impose a limitation? Would you go, would you let it be regulated by HOAs and CCNRs? Because none of these neighborhoods that are in Coeur d'Alene have them. They're old. They were kind of, grandfathered in with none. So how do you handle that problem? Because you're going to have people that love those neighborhoods and live there for generations, and they're pissed off that the one across the street's a vacation rental.
Yeah, I mean, these historic neighborhoods, the Garden District, absolutely beautiful. I don't know how many vacation rentals are over there, but there's probably a lot. But at the same time, you have some of these like legacy properties that are clearly well cared for and iconic when you're driving around Coeur d'Alene. I mean, that's where we take clients all the time. Like, check this out. This is what it's all
Sanders
about.
Beach. And
if you lose that and they all become rentals, you're going to lose some of that appeal because they won't be as well maintained.
Yeah, and I think part of it is these things self-regulate over time. Like, I know people with short-term rentals, and they're like, the grind.
Yeah.
It's so annoying to have to go and clean it every 2 or 3 days.
Right.
And while that can generate other companies that then service them, I think over time people are going to get tired of it. They'll sell them off. You can't limit who can have a short-term rental and who can't. You'll be taking their property rights away, right? And the state has even said, like, this is a right of homeowners to do if they want to do it with their home. But if they have to charge a fee that's more than $180, I think that will help. If they have to pay a lodging tax of 2%, I think that will help. That's what I would propose. Nothing heavy-handed, but we want the tourists to help pay more towards the parks, the streets, the police, the fire.
They use them. They use, the road wear and tear. Every department across that, the burden on water supply or sanitation or any of those things. I think there's an impact of having a significant percentage population increase in the summer months, right? We even get into wintertime.
How does that, Eric, from the PD standpoint, like what's the call volume that are out of state, people from Washington that are coming over and just using the park?
Oh, it was buck wild during COVID. But it was, it's significant. You can see on, for a long time, especially when we were posting like our daily activities, North Idaho News would pick that up, and then people would comment on which ones were from Idaho and Washington and all that. Mm-hmm. Downtown for sure. We had a downtown bar patrol unit in the summertime and a bike patrol down there. A lot of that is purely based on the added number of people that are downtown.
Yeah.
I don't know,
and some of them are bringing money to the local businesses, which we obviously all support. But
we're not complaining about people wanting to come here. It's clean, it's nice, but there is a greater burden on the existing services here when you do that. So if are you aware if Mayor Pulsipher, I apologize, Pulsipher, did I say it right?
No,
Pulsipher, got it, nailed it, I got it. Mayor Pulsipher decides, hey, we're going to charge a 2% vacation rental on, and where does that go? Does that go general fund? What can you use those funds for? Are there any limitations?
That'd be a good question. I work with the city staff and the city council. Ultimately, as a mayor, I would be giving a vision and trying to grease the skids so that it could happen. But the city council are the people with the power. They have to vote. I couldn't vote unless there's a tie. But
any idea how the current city officials feel about that? I mean, it's always a question for a voter in our area. Are they being polled one way or another based on people that have contributed to their campaign previously, right? It's just, I think, in anything that involves money. But are you aware of how they feel about that currently?
I listened to Dan on your podcast talk about how he wishes that was the law, that we could just mandate that. I don't know for sure. I haven't spoken with the city council members about that, but I imagine, we're just we're backed into a corner.
Right.
There's nothing else we can do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, there are some other things we can do. The city can charge better rent rates on properties that it has. It can, it could add, when the Atlas Park was created, they let some food trucks go down there, and that's creating a little bit of revenue. But they could do other things too to generate some revenue. It's going to be drops in the bucket. It's not going to add up to $2 million very quickly.
What are your opinions on impact fees?
Yeah, have them and make, they probably should be more than what they are.
Yeah. All right. Pop quiz. How many impact fees did we take during the fastest period of growth in our city's history?
No idea.
I don't know, but it was next to nothing, if not nothing. I mean, when we were expanding and growing and putting in all of these, that was our big frustration when we were going through previous negotiations. Why is it that if it's going to cause the significant strain on all of the services that the city provides, are we not taking impact fees from the developers that are making historic amounts of money with these developments? Yeah. I mean, that's nothing to gripe about now, except that it was really frustrating then.
Is that a function of a good old boy network?
I don't know. The impact fees, it's hard because we want to generate more income for the city, but we also want homes to be more affordable, less expensive, right? So it's like if we add higher impact fees, the developer is probably or the builder is going to just probably tack it on to the cost of the home.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
It's a tricky issue. It probably has to be worked out with people who are smarter than I am. Like, I love to be the dumbest person in the room and listen to everybody first. I like to lead by first gathering knowledge and then building consensus and coming up with a solution that works. So,
I'm curious what I'm building a house right now, but it's in the county, and I want to say permits and probably any fees was like in the range of $7,000 total. I know I tell people from other states that, and they're like, wow, that's amazing. And it is when you're on this side of it. But, when you're looking at it from all angles and, hey, now, is this sustainable? Should it be more?
Man, I don't know. I'm torn.
I'm already paid mine, so.
Yeah, but in fairness, dude, like you bought land that had a home, you demoed it, and you're building a new one.
Yeah.
The taxation on, this goes well beyond the mayoral race in Coeur, Idaho, but it already pisses me off that if I go sell a car that I already paid taxes on, that person needs to pay taxes and then re-register it. And if they sell it, they have to pay additional taxes on a vehicle that already exists. It already ticks me off, right? So there's a part of me that looks at it and say, you own the property, and the city is just stamping on the approval of the construction bid, right? You're not adding to the services.
Because it already existed, right?
It already existed. Yeah. So there's a part of me in thinking creatively about how you draw funds from the people that impact the services the most for the rest of the city. And I think that's where a lot of frustration comes from. Had we pulled some of these impact fees previously, the existing citizens that have been here for the last 40 years wouldn't feel unnecessarily burdened by the increase in our population. Right? Because that's what they're frustrated. Why am I going to pay more taxes when I've been here the entire time? I'm not a further draw. So I don't know. I think it's a complicated problem, and I've posited it to both the previous mayoral candidates. How are you going to convince Boise to change that statute, to alter the statute so that the city itself can make its own determination on whether or not it's a resort town.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I will personally call every representative from Northern Idaho, and I think they have to feel the pain as well. You know, we will invite people to come to our city and say, look, is this not a resort town? It is.
Right. It's pretty hard to deny.
Yeah.
Yeah. When your number one industry here is tourism, I mean, and it still is very much so. I think the next biggest, do you know what the next biggest employer out here is?
It's probably Cooney Health.
Cooney Health.
And then school districts maybe.
Yep, and that's just it. So that to me screams that it's a resort and tourism. I would love to see, do you have any ideas for bringing additional industries here?
Yeah, I think we have to, right? I have 4 sons. I don't think they're going to be in tourism. They want to do other things like tech and stuff like that. And there are a lot of good organizations in the area already working with companies to try and recruit them here. And we have to, I mean, we're in Idaho, so we have some great framework to go from already, right? So we have, it's a free state. There's low taxation, although, Washington has no state income tax. So we're a little bit limited in what we can do, but
Washington still ranks 45th out of 50 as far as individual tax burden. Idaho is 11th out of 50. I'm just going to put that out. Even with our state income tax.
There you go.
Suck it, Washington.
And you can't put a price on freedom.
Yeah.
This opens up an interesting thought that we had the conversation with Bill Kirk, who runs Washington Gun Law. He has a big YouTube channel over there. Great, smart gentleman. And we were talking about businesses, particularly tech businesses. They can be the downfall for a society. And I haven't asked your political leanings yet, but we'll get to that point. But Bill made some great points that, you look at these large metropolitan cities in other states that have become liberal. Boise is potentially heading that route. And tech industry seems to be a guiding factor in that. You bring these tech industries over, generally the people they employ are not conservative, generally, and it can start to shift the political leanings of a place. And I know that North Idaho would push back very strongly on that. That is my fear with bringing in tech, and I don't know how to balance that. Obviously, you can't vet them. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, you can't really.
But I see the point of, yes, bringing in more jobs is pretty critical to make this place flourish.
Yeah, you said that there are people actively recruiting good businesses here. What would you characterize as a good business for North Idaho?
Oh, any business. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm thinking bigger companies or companies that employ people. I mean, there was a big push for aerospace companies to come here. So the Coeur d'Alene Economic Development Council, formerly known as Jobs Plus, Ginny Gillum there has been working for several years trying to recruit companies. Because like you said, really we have tourism, we have services like healthcare and schools. And after that, like when I first moved here in 2008, I thought, man, there are a lot of guys who do lawn care and snow removal. And I thought that was like the 3rd most common job is what it seemed like. And I had a lot of friends who do that. And that's tough. That's a tough way to make a living. It's not bad. You can do it. But for me to be able to, help my kids want to stay here, and there's got to be some other jobs.
Right. Yeah, we have, there's a fair amount of manufacturing up here, but, I don't know pay-wise. I don't know if that's suitable.
Manufacturing's great. Yeah, I know there's good, in a lot of them are aerospace. I know one company that makes parts that Toyota buys them, and they just make little screws and widgets. It's all robotics, and robots make all their parts. But yeah,
that's a tough one. I had a question about how you feel about the buildings going vertical in Coeur d'Alene. Obviously, there's a lot of cranes on the horizon right now. Is that something you'd support or not?
So as mayor, I would follow the comprehensive plan that's been developed for the city from 2022 to 2042. And the city council could change it if voters want it. So what's interesting is like Woody and Dan are running for mayor, and all of that has happened under their watch, right? So it's interesting when you hear a candidate say like, oh, this is the end of it. Like, how did this happen? It's like, well, you've been there.
Right.
You were there when it all happened. So it's an interesting thing because the towers go up and people complain. But if you want to build a subdivision like in Athol, people are like, hey, no, not here. So don't bring more people by us. And if you put a subdivision somewhere else, or people want to put in duplexes or twin homes, the problem is nobody really likes change. Personally, I have nothing. I think change is good. Having more homes is good. I love the downtown charm. We want to preserve it. But also, like where the U.S. Bank building is and the parking lot that's going up and turning into the Thomas George building, that's that property owner's right. And if they have that right to build that, at what point can the city be justified in saying, hey, owner across the street in the Wells Fargo building, you can't do that? Like legally, when and how can we say that? And so that's a question I would have as mayor. Like, if you're going to start changing the zoning and the building rights, like, is there some period of time where it's still permissible for some landowners to do that? Because, again, it goes back to private property rights.
And in fairness, a lot of them purchased it believing that those rights that those rights existed. So is it fair to have them holding the bag, so to speak, without being able to utilize their own property rights to build what they want? What is your take on down? Because it's not just with like buildings going up. Like are you familiar with the noise ordinances downtown?
Yeah.
Loud cars, loud motorcycles.
Right.
What's your take on that?
I mean, I get it. I get why people hate loud noises, right? We live right on a main drag where people love to like rev it up and go as fast as they can for like 300 feet. And it's annoying. But at the same time, I think about what burden are we creating for police officers when we say, okay, guys, seriously, like get out there and give $300 tickets to people that do that. And I mean, by the time you hear the sound, like where is the motorcycle or the car? To me, I don't know. How do you police that?
Well, what you do is you say, that person over there that's dealing fentanyl, don't worry about that person. That loud car downtown, go get him.
Right.
Here's what you do. You let the troopers in.
Oh, dude.
You bring ISP downtown. You say, hey, boys and girls, we want you to go out and just hammer the shit out of this particular thing. And they'll gladly do it. And I'm a former trooper, so that's my hat. So I'm all about it. And that's great PC for a stop. And then you're going to find other shit. So will they do it? Hell yeah, they'll do it. But he's not wrong on that regard too. I think you need to bring in it sounds dumb, but like a task force to come in and enforce that.
Right. It's tough, and I'll hit you straight up, dude, because you don't strike me. You haven't been in politics before, right?
No, never. Yeah.
So, have you already thought of, like, does it take money to win this race?
Probably, but I'm not taking any donations.
Right. No, which I respect the hell out of, but does it also take a lot of pull from influenced people in the city?
I imagine.
Yeah. So how do you do that? Because I don't disagree with you. I believe in people's individual freedom, and I think there's a fine line there's a fine line between somebody driving their freaking 69 Mach 1 Mustang that just sounds loud with a 427, right? That's awesome.
That's sexy.
Yes, it's amazing, and it's a little bit loud just driving down the road, and then somebody racing somebody down Sherman where there's a heavily populated area. There's two completely different things, but how does Mayor Pulsipher, I had to fix that. I fixed it this time. You nailed it. How do you handle that influential person that stepped behind your campaign that's saying, this is annoying me, it's bugging me, go fix it?
Yeah, that's a great, I love that you asked that question, because it seems like, to me, especially in an election year, people come in and complain, and politicians are, oh yes, Mr. Jones, we'll fix that. We're going to put up signs. We're going to do this. And one way that I think you fix it is you get rid of the politicians. I mean, yeah, look, if I run for mayor, I'm running for mayor. If I get elected, this is going to be a one-term thing. Like, I'm not looking to scratch people's backs. I'm there to help create a vision where we have a balanced budget, where we have citizens who are informed, citizens who are engaged and working with our city staff, including first responders, and then offloading some of the tax burden to other people. So, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because I say get rid of the politicians, but at the same time, I'm telling you, they have it about 99% right.
Right.
they're doing a good job. And we don't need to throw the baby out with the bath water. I don't want to see happen in Coeur d'Alene what happened at NIC. As good as the intentions may have been. I think there were good intentions, but the institution almost disappeared. We don't want to see that happen with our city. We don't want to see that happen with our libraries. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's like, I think that's something important to keep in mind. And for me too, if it goes back to if you're a police officer in Coeur d'Alene and I tell you, Eric, I want you to give tickets for the loud engines. Like, how much are you going to love your job? You didn't become a police officer for that, I don't think.
Well,
but
There's some dude out there that would just love it to death. I'm just telling you.
I can tell you that
Just one, though.
we got pressure from previous council members and maybe even the mayor himself. I don't remember, so I'm not going to call anybody out by name, to go issue infractions for masks in the city and issue written warnings
For not wearing them?
Correct. If there were gatherings. You want to know how many?
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, zero. I'm sure zero, right?
Yeah, but there's a fine line. We're problem solvers. We don't want downtown to be dangerous. We don't want people getting, dieseled out, in black clouds of smoke downtown. I don't think that has any business being down there. But again, I do have some bones to pick with polling officers off of proactive criminal interdiction police work to address an ornery, loud citizen downtown saying they don't like motorcycles. I don't think it's a viable use of our manpower. I was just curious how you'd handle those conversations, because oftentimes it seams squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like you said, there are bigger fish to fry in the city. And I don't know, like at some point, hopefully it's one of those issues that resolves itself. Like, yeah, we don't want to have a super loud, noisy downtown, but at the same time, if people move there and expect it to be a certain way, they have to realize it's going to be very different in December and January and February and March than it is in the summer.
Yeah, I should clarify. I'm very libertarian on how I view things, but I'm speaking about, those vehicles that are so obnoxiously loud. Like children are crying on the street, and you're trying to eat dinner there, and this asshole's like that. That's the guy.
Yeah,
that I'm like, sign him up.
Yep, you are especially
you're being a dickhead, and you know it.
If you're rolling coals right in front of an outdoor restaurant, that's just it's foolish.
Yeah.
That's a different thing to me.
That's a different thing.
I do when you talk to people from out of state, how do you describe Coeur d'Alene? I guess summarize your perspective of Coeur d'Alene's values.
Well, I would say Coeur d'Alene, especially recently, although I don't know, it's changed over time. Especially recently, we have a lot of people moving here, I feel like with a little bit of PTSD, where they're moving from states where they didn't have rights or their vote didn't matter because they were in a minority, and they felt, especially after COVID, we watched states like California and Washington, and I wonder how are some of those politicians still elected, because their COVID policies were so stringent and difficult for people to deal with. And I feel like the values that people come with are values of faith, values of family, love of country, which I love all of that. And then I think sometimes, and I think it's maybe dying down a little bit in Coeur d'Alene, there's less of like, people have been, I think it was like when Mayor Hammond got elected, like people were coming in really hot, like trying to fight for some right that they were worried about being trampled on. And so that may not be a value. That's how some people are expressing their values. I think there's just, and I think it takes a while for somebody to leave from a situation where they have felt restricted or abused and like they haven't been listened to. I think it takes a while for them to just like decompress and realize like where we are and what is or isn't happening. So
apathy. I mean, when you're moving from a place where you couldn't call the cops because you'd go to a recorded system, even if you're reporting a serious crime. I used to tell the guys on patrol, if you run into somebody that's moving here from a different state, take a couple extra minutes to advise them how we do work here how you're going to get a cop that responds to your neighborhood if you see something that doesn't fit, because a lot of people are moving from a place where they probably had some PTSD or they were apathetic towards law enforcement and, in fairness, towards city officials, because their voice isn't heard, because most of them are completely bought and paid for by the time they ever get into office.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do to retain that value system and belief of what Coeur d'Alene is?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I don't feel like, what can the mayor do to take away from that?
Yeah.
What could I do that would take away from that as a mayor?
Oh, to be honest, I think in that position, especially in a small community, quite a bit. I think there's a lot of influence but with city council, and some of those policies are, I go back to law enforcement, not retaining the best and brightest, not hanging on to the people that you've invested a ton of money and time into developing and training, or, not recruiting them either, right? We're out recruiting other jobs, but I would also say that when describing Coeur d'Alene, it's one of the safest cities in the country. So how do you keep it that way, right? Mm-hmm. And it's tough because you got budgets to balance, but how do you retain your primary resource for keeping the community one of the safest in the country?
Yeah, I would just lean on the city staff for that. I mean, in my mind, they've been doing it. Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned earlier, it may have been before we started rolling the podcast, but, the large decrease in Part 1 crimes, like 70%. Mm-hmm. Coeur d'Alene has been on a wonderful trajectory, and I'm not sure how much lifting the mayor and city council are doing for that. I know everybody's saying we want to support the first responders. They're getting them raises.
Yeah, I just want to hear that you're a one-man show and you're going to get it all done yourself.
That's
what I really want.
Drive down to Boise and whoop some ass down there.
Yeah, exactly. Just walk in, come storming into freaking legislation and get it done.
Can we ask about, can we switch to your personal values and your political beliefs? Because people are going to want to ask that, and that's obviously very important to those up here. So where do you lean politically, and what are some of your core values for you and your family?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, as I consider running for mayor, and I realize Coeur d'Alene is very diverse. Like I said, my neighborhood feels more like left than right, though when you think North Idaho.
That is surprising, yes.
Yeah. Even if you go down to Sanders Beach, many of the downtown neighborhoods, in presidential election years, it's pretty surprising to me as somebody who's coming to Idaho, and you think, oh, Idaho's a red state. Everybody's a red person. That's not true, and it's especially not true in Coeur d'Alene. So running for mayor, I'm not looking to impose my values on anybody. It's to just run the city and give a vision for the city. Having said that, I'm totally happy to share my values. I'm a person of faith. Family is very important to me. So, my family, my faith, my country, those are top three things. If I got a phone call tomorrow and said, hey, we want you to come work for the government, I would say, okay, I would love to serve. I'm too old. I can't be in the military. I probably couldn't pass the PT test to be a police officer. But
no, it's not hard.
You'd be surprised, yeah. You probably could.
But, I have these friends who are police officers and detectives, and I'm like, tell me about your day. And I'm like a little kid, get out the popcorn. I want to hear about what you're doing because, we have a free country and people fought and died for that many times. I have ancestors who fought in wars. Nobody in my direct immediate family has been in the military, but I have a great respect for people in the military, people who serve this country, who serve the city. So, as far as I'm definitely on the conservative side, but I also feel like our country is, and even our city, sometimes it's just the divergence is becoming wider and wider. Yeah. And I definitely feel like I'm more in the middle, and I'm like, guys, let's not be so crazy. Like, there's got to be a common sense solution that works for everybody.
Right.
And that's where I keep finding myself.
We talk about this a lot, and that the country as a whole is lacking the ability for people to have conversations again, right? And that is important. But at the same time, personally, I look at and a lot of my family is liberal. Don't worry, they don't live here. But I look at what happens, and this is what people up here will say. Look at what happens in these large liberal cities. They're completely unlivable. So yes, I think people need to have conversations, and I think we can probably be a little more in the middle on a lot of issues. But there are some issues that I think need to have a hard line on. Otherwise, we end up like Spokane in 10 years, and nobody wants that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, definitely not.
Right.
And like when you say that, one thing comes to my mind, like in the skate park, there is a box that you can open up, and it's filled with Narcan for fentanyl overdose.
Yeah.
And so part of me thinks, well, gosh, that's kind of a liberal policy to just have like Narcan out for anybody. But then part of me is like, that's a very humane thing to do. Like if somebody has an overdose, like let's have it available. I don't know, where do you guys think that fits on the spectrum
that's
of
Eric's, that's Eric's world.
Is that is that a liberal thing to do? Is that a conservative thing to do? Or
man, I think that falls outside of politics. I hate that our societies in general have come to a place where Narcan should be in every public school. But the simple truth is we had 2 overdoses at a local high school last year. So, or maybe it was a year prior now. How long have I been gone? But no, kids make mistakes. I made plenty, and what's available to them now is far more dangerous than what was available to us. So having it available, I'm for that. Yeah. I don't think that should be at 15, 16 years old, making a single mistake, especially now that you're finding powder and cocaine and all sorts of other mixtures. I think that's just a responsible society. And that doesn't mean I think we should have clean needle sites or paraphernalia being disseminated by state-funded agencies, which happened down south, by the way. For me, from my background, I'm for it. Mm-hmm. I think it should be publicly available.
Yeah, but I can see the questioning there, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah, it's like just trying to work through, like an example of what one would have to work through.
Right.
Oh, I got a big one for you, man. Actually, I got 2. All right, let's stay on topic with down south. How would you? Boise's made the news a fair amount recently.
I was going to ask this.
Pride flag. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, bring it. What do you got? What do you got?
But just because I heard from your last interview.
We asked everybody else. We got to ask you.
Yeah, no, I agree with what like Dan Gukin said. Like the only flags that should fly in a city are the American flag and the state flag.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
But also having said that, because I went through a vetting process with the KCRCC, and they asked questions like, well, how do you feel about pride in the park? And I live right by the park. And the truth is, as a mayor, if people want a permit to do something that's not illegal, I am obligated to allow that. And why not? I mean, okay, great. Let's have a party. Let people have a party if they want to have a party. Yeah. So that's while I would not fly some flag that's different, like Dan Gukin said, you can't fly a Girl Scout flag, you can't fly a Boy Scout flag, whatever. But that's a long answer to your question.
No, it's
like we got to live by the law.
Right.
The Idaho Constitution, the U.S. Constitution would be the things I would be looking to uphold.
I've answered a lot of questions about the white supremacists and Aryan Nation and Aryan Brotherhood that existed here in the 1990s. They had a little compound. And they used to do a march downtown and say, how come what's their First Amendment rights to do it? They can go get a freaking permit like anybody else. We did the same thing with BLM, right? Like, it doesn't mean that I agree in any way, shape, or form, but you have to protect their First Amendment right to do it, is my take on that.
Yeah.
It's tough, and you don't have to like it.
Yeah, and so it gets a little scary if you have a political group backing you that says, hey, if you're the mayor, your values must trump the law. Because that's going to create
Have they endorsed
lawsuits.
Anybody yet?
Yes, they did, yeah. That's the one, not me. That's the one yet to come if you guys have.
Oh, yeah, there's one more. A female.
Yeah.
Yep. What, do you know her name?
I do.
Okay.
The name that should not be spoken. I'm just kidding.
You can talk about it later.
It's like Debbie Loftman, I think is her name. So
we'll have to reach out to her.
So there's a 4th mayoral candidate.
Yeah, I was the 4th, to be honest. So,
Okay. Well, she didn't reach out to us and want to come on.
I looked at her website first, and I thought, is she going to be somebody good? And I thought, doesn't look like it to me.
So she was endorsed by KCRCC?
Yeah, I think just over this last weekend.
Which we need to sit down with somebody from there.
Oh, yeah, you totally
I think that's
should.
on
Yeah, Brent Regan. Regan is like the main dude that gets the bullseye on him most of the time from other people, but yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm super curious because they actually, I think it was didn't he just have an article in the paper about judges? It was Like within a week of us releasing the judicial watch one on judges, you saying that they were doing something with that they had a program. I'd gladly sit down.
That does sound familiar. Yeah.
It's interesting. One more for you, and I think this is an underscored portion of the job. Do you know what the largest body of like personnel as far as city employees is in Coeur d'Alene?
I would guess the police department.
It is.
Yeah.
So obviously PDs are different than sheriff's office. Sheriff's elected. Police chief is appointed by city council, but the mayor has a pretty big responsibility. How would you make that determination? Lee White's not going to be there forever. Eventually he's
so young. He's got to have at least 20 years left.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of people hope that, but nobody's earned a retirement more. But no, I would project that he's not going to stay there forever. Where would you put your stock in that as far as qualifying a police chief and then, trying to make sure that the city retains the best and brightest in that position?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it ties back into like values of the community. I wouldn't want to hire somebody who's coming in with a political agenda. I'd want somebody who's going to come in, follow the law, who's going to be big on training, recruiting, retaining the best people. I would want somebody who's approachable. Sometimes you have good leaders who are not good listeners or they're not approachable. And I think that makes it tough for people to stay with them a long time. Somebody once said, people don't quit jobs, they quit their manager. And I think I would see the same thing being true with a police department. Like if people are leaving, it may not be the pay. We talk about it being pay, but really what keeps people in a position is more than pay. It's like, are they feeling valued? Do they have a responsibility? Is the environment one that they appreciate? Are they connecting with their leaders and their supervisors? So I think, I've hired people for the last 15, 17 years. Less than the last 5 to 10, but I recruit people to the area all the time to work in my business, and I recruit from all over the country. So I would do the same thing, and I would want somebody that fits that criteria.
You'd open it up and wouldn't just be an internal.
I think internal hires are generally the best in most companies. Like in a police department, I'm not sure I would want to lean on. I imagine if Chief White is leaving and I'm the mayor, I could sit down with Chief White and say, "Hey, Chief, tell me, what do you think? Like, who should be? Do we have anybody on the inside? Because if you hire from within, I know Chief White did not come from within. I think he came from Arizona.
Mesa.
But, yeah. So, and he's been phenomenal by all reports that I have heard, and from my own observations. But I would work with him, take his advice, maybe even ask sergeants or everybody, any other people, like, hey, if you had top 3 people in the department, who would you choose? And I don't know if that's legal. I'd talk to the bargaining people too, probably. But
sometimes
I would probably ask Eric Boardman, mayor.
Yeah, I'll ask Eric. Yeah, that's
mayor
right.
of Hauser.
Your stuff. No, don't even put that out there. Dude.
I'll put it out there.
No. Yeah, you had Mike wanted to put that in his contract. No, I would recommend that. Additionally, they have an association, and if you haven't reached out to them yet, I would encourage it. You can get a lot of internal communication and see what the pulse of the guys and gals in blue and on the street that are out there every night, see what the pulse is from them as well. Highly recommend that. Administration is obviously a really, really good resource too, but sometimes the perspective is different than the ones that are on the ground. I'm not saying that's the case here, but sometimes go on a ride along and then you really get to see what it's all about. And a lot of times you'll get some raw information. I've encouraged city council members to do that too. I said, come on a ride.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, come check it out.
And I can speak on this because we get a lot of this. You're going to get pushback from both sides of the spectrum here. I imagine you're aware of that. And how will you kind of navigate that world? Because you're going to get people that say you're not conservative enough. Right. You're going to get people say that you're too conservative. What's the best angle there? How would you approach that?
Well, I think, you're saying if I'm mayor, if I'm elected
Correct.
mayor.
Yeah, sorry, yes.
Well, I think I'd be like, tell me more. Tell me why you think that, and what do you believe is going wrong, and how should it be better? And then I would listen and take some notes, and I would genuinely thank them for their input. And, I'd reflect on how I'm behaving, see if there's any truth to that. But, at the end of the day, if you're elected by the people and you're putting forth your best efforts and things are going well in the city, then I think you just stay the course with the plan and vision you have put forward.
Yeah. Okay. At the very beginning, you talked about disseminating information to the public. Does the city have? I mean, imagine they have a social media. Would that be an angle?
That could be, but for example, like North Idaho News, I think one of you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I think on Facebook they have 140,000 people that follow it, and mostly it's the traffic, or not the traffic, but the chatter from the radio, police radio, and stuff. I would say, why don't we publish it there, where we know how many people?
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And I asked them, I said, hey, does the city publish anything to you guys? They said, no, they don't, and they wouldn't. And I said, would you publish it for free if they gave you a press release or whatever? And they said, absolutely.
Yeah, because legacy media doesn't appeal to the younger generations. My kids have probably never held a newspaper in their hands in their lives. So I think to fulfill that goal, you'd have to find other avenues like that. No matter how much we all hate social media, it does play a part in our lives.
There are a lot of people that still believe that legacy media is the only legitimate media.
Yes.
Right.
Sadly, yes.
Yeah.
But in reality, if you can get the information directly from the city onto North Idaho News or whoever, that's probably going to be the best route.
Here's the issue. Like, if you leave a void of information, it gets filled with conjecture, and he who's first wins. Even if you post a correction, how many people even see it? Like, at this point in time, it's all about instant gratification. People want that immediately. They want to know what's going on as fast as humanly possible. And if you don't provide them that information, they're going to go get bad information somewhere else. The only way to control the narrative is to get out first.
Yeah, and be really transparent, because everybody has theories on these high rises, and it's like, well, somebody's getting paid off. That's what everybody says. That's what I believe. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But sure seems like it. So I think, finding ways to be really transparent there would be invaluable.
Right, because if you even look at the hotel that's going in downtown, there was projections that thing was going to be something ridiculous, like 30 stories or 25 or 30 stories. And I mean, I'm not.
And it's 6, right?
Yeah, and obviously they say, "Hey, listen, this is coming, right? Like, this is a really hard thing that you can't unring the bell," is what I always say. Where do people stay? I mean, you have the resort, but it is a tourist community. Southern Idaho, it's a resort town, so people stay somewhere. So I'd rather have 6 or 7 than 30, right? Try to retain
that's
the
a little
timeline.
ridiculous, right?
But that to me is like. You have to communicate that to the public. Hey, look, there's no slowing, like there's no stopping it. All you can do is try to retain the culture that everybody appreciates about Northern Idaho, the small town feel, the growing city with a small town mentality, right? Try to retain that as best as you possibly can.
Yeah, and I think if people are informed, and then if there's opportunities for them to engage serving together, shoulder to shoulder with their neighbors, with the city employees, doing any kind of project, like that's going to build community. I kind of joke with people, every year I feel like Coeur d'Alene gets smaller, meaning that I know more people now, and and if we could get everybody to feel that way, I think, like I went to a football game with one of my coworkers the other day. My family, we joined her son was playing in the game. He played for St. Mary's, and the game was at Rathdrum at Lakeland, and we went there, and it was like, whoa, this was before, I think it was before school started, and there were a ton of people there. And it's like, this is small town America, where people, they had their trailer set up, and they were selling Lakeland gear, and they were popping popcorn. They said it was the best popcorn in North Idaho. But you just see, it's like the whole city was there, it felt like, and like that's community.
Yeah, small town USA.
That's what we don't want to lose.
Yeah, we don't want to lose it. And at the same time,
my son played in that game, by the way.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he plays for Lakeland.
Oh, cool. But like you look at Memorial Field downtown by NIC. NIC uses it for softball, and it sits vacant.
I know.
So much of the time. But what if we had we have community softball. The city does it. And NIC has sports teams playing all the time, but do people go? And that's on me too, because I'm not going. But if we had more community stuff like that, somehow we have to engage people more. That's through communication and kind of creating opportunities for that to happen. But I think that'll make a big difference in helping to maintain the small town culture feel.
Yeah.
What I heard is he wants a professional sports team in Coeur d'Alene.
No.
That would be pretty sweet. You heard it here first.
Oh, my
No, I'm just
goodness. So we're pushing on time. Do you have any other key points that you want to throw out there? Any last thoughts?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, it's fun to sit down with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out.
Been a pleasure to get to know you. I hope people find this information useful. Any final thoughts, Eric?
No, I think we nailed it.
All right. Well, yeah.
I guess I would say go to bettercda.com for my website.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So this candidacy is not about me as a person. It's about the place and ideas to make it better. Fresh leadership, bold ideas, preserving institutions. And if you like what you see, then vote for me.
Perfect.
Awesome.
I will link your
John.
website in the show notes. I already had that in there. So, John Pulsipher, thank you, sir. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. Been a
Appreciate
pleasure.
you coming on.
Yeah. Look for him on the ballot.
Yep.
All
Cheers,
right,
guys.
Thank you.